Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it on?
He's on. I don't have 7 yet, but
I
he's
don't
on.
have 7. I'll wait for the full 10 seconds.
Funny seats.
All right, we've got 7 o'clock. Welcome to the August 9th, 2022 meeting of the Stow Select Board. In the room with me tonight, I have Ms. Hageman, Ms. Fresha, and myself, Ms. McMichael, and then on,
So Ellen is having technical difficulties.
Okay.
She was on, but she's having a poor connection, so.
okay. So
Maybe
we
joining
may or may
us.
not have Ms. Sturgis on remotely. Just a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. And if you're on Zoom, use the raise hand function so that we can see that you have a question. I will start with public comment. Just a reminder, public comment is for things that are not on the agenda. Ms. Woods.
Debbie Woods, thank you very much, Madam
Yeah.
Chair. Question, I noticed in the paper there is a legal notice for feasibility study for a new public works facility. So a couple questions. We are a highway department. When did we adopt the name change of public works facility? So that's question number one. And
Okay.
I don't know if these are just comments or there'll be any interaction. And the other question is, due to some illnesses in the family, I was unable to attend town meeting, so I apologize for that. But the question is, has the town approved any kind of spending for a feasibility study? Or is this before that? So those are my two questions.
Thank you. I will have to get back to you on that.
Okay, fine,
But thank you. Yep. Anybody else? Any other public comment?
No, and Ellen is back on now,
Okay,
so.
fantastic. Do we have any board member comments tonight?
None from me.
None for you? None for me, none for me. Ellen, did you have anything? Nope, okay. With that, we're going to move right on to the town administrator's report.
Thank you. As of August 4th, we have 14 positive cases of COVID, or a 5.07% positivity rate. Our numbers have decreased over the last few weeks. The state and the county are hanging steadily around 8%, but we have decreased since my last report. Regarding the beach, we are waiting on test results from the algae testing. It appears by visible sight that the bacteria has gone away, but we are waiting on the results. Under mass guidelines, we have to get the results before we can actually fully reopen the beach. The beach was tested last week. The only testing facility is in Washington State, so we are waiting to hear from them when we can reopen. For those of you who did not get my message on Friday night, we are asking the public to do their best to conserve water. Stow is entirely private wells, but all water does come from the same aquifer. And as the drought continues, it may impact individual well systems. We have heard from a number of folks that have shallow wells that are actually struggling to get water. So ask everyone to do your part, please conserve water. We ask that you refrain from watering your lawn or washing your car or using unnecessary water in your household. Hopefully we'll get through this soon, but for now, we do ask everyone to please conserve. Just a comment to the board, in your packet, it notes the Comcast public hearing will be at our next meeting. Tonight, we are having the recap on what is included in the contract. Unfortunately, the independent inadvertently missed our public hearing notice. So we will be pushing out the public hearing until September 13th, as our bylaw requires us to advertise at least 7 days prior to the hearing. And just a note to the board, I will be out on vacation next week, so I will not be available. I can comment on 2 questions that came up earlier this evening. Yes, the town did appropriate funding for a feasibility study, and we are calling it Public Works because the goal is, well, we've started to move the cemetery into that building, so it is not just a highway building any longer. So the plan is to consolidate, figure out resources, and then go through the formality of actually changing the name, but we have appropriated funding for that.
Thank you. Do you know how much, may I ask?
I think it was 100,000, but I'll double check. I'll look it up by
That's
the
fine.
course of tonight.
That's fine, thank you.
And that's it.
And that's all?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. So we have a couple of appointments tonight. The first one is Steven Walsh to the position of Call Fire Lieutenant. Denise had put a note in our packet. Captain Evers, do you wanna speak to this?
So Steve's been with the department just over 3 years now. In that time, he's been a very valuable member, very active call firefighter. He works night shifts for us. And with his public safety dispatch background, I feel like he's gonna make a really good addition to our officer corps. And he's really eager to serve the citizens of Stow.
Excellent. Any comments? Denise, did you have anything?
Nope, I fully support the recommendation. I think he'll be a great addition to the command staff.
Ellen, did you have anything to say? You good? Okay. I think with that, I will take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to appoint Steven Walsh to the position of Call Fire Lieutenant through June 30th, 2023.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Roll call, sorry. Ms. Sturgis, aye. Ms. Hegeman?
Aye.
Ms. Fresha?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, so that is unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So I think we're gonna do a penny. If Mom wants to come up and take, like, you can get in a better
Yeah, feel
place
free,
for
stand
pictures,
anywhere.
please do whatever you want to. Congratulations and welcome. More. All right.
You guys are all welcome to leave.
Yes. Thank you. All right, so our second appointment of the evening is for David Korn to fill the vacant at-large member spot on the Green Advisory Committee.
Yes, so admittedly, I don't believe David is on.
Okay.
And I will just say, I did not have a chance to actually speak with him. He was
Okay.
on vacation. I took the recommendation of Arnie, as he solicited this candidate to participate on the Green Advisory Committee. And
Okay.
obviously, judging by his background, I think he's
Yeah.
a fantastic fit.
Ellen,
Ellen
you have
does
your
have-
hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, since Denise didn't get to meet him, I've actually known Dave since I moved to Stow. I couldn't think of a better person. His business is, looking at buildings and coming up with the best energy. So it's really good to have actually a business person who's doing this energy stuff. I just think he's going to bring incredible background to this. He's also a former member of Concom from, I don't know how many years ago, but so he's been in different boards, but it's been a while. So I'm glad to have him back.
Excellent, thank you. Any comments? No? All right, with that, I'll take a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to appoint David Korn to the Green Advisory Committee to fill the remainder of a one-year term expiring June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Ms. Sturgis?
Aye.
Hegeman?
Aye.
Ms. Fresha?
Aye.
And chair votes aye, that is unanimous.
A quick question. Who did we lose? Did someone have to step down from the committee? I meant to ask that
No.
earlier.
Someone chose to not be reappointed. One of the members of ours chose not to be reappointed.
Alrighty, all right, so next we have one of two permits for the evening, and I'm gonna ask Hector to give us a brief overview of your of what the permit is.
Sure. It's on September 3rd, we plan on holding a beer and food truck festival at the First Parish Church grounds. Hoping to attract anywhere from, we're hoping 400 people, but we'll be happy if we get 200 people to just enjoy. There's 3 breweries that'll be there and 3 food trucks and 1 ice cream truck. And We'll have some places to sit down, some games for kids, hoping to make it a nice family event. And it's primarily a fundraiser for First Parish Church, but also to kind of open ourselves up to the community.
Excellent. Would you like to speak to
Sure.
paperwork or whatever?
Yes,
What we're looking
certainly. So Hector has provided all of the necessary information to come before you. We are still waiting on a couple of items that he can get us up right up until the event date, provided you approve it pending the receipt of those items.
Okay.
We ran the check that we needed to for the one-day liquor license. That is fine. And I think the only outstanding items are we're waiting on Neshoba Board of Health to give us the go-ahead on the mobile food trucks. I know they were still in the process of permitting those. And then we just need the tips and crowd manager certifications for the volunteers that you identified. And that he complies with the public safety plan, which the chief and captain are here tonight.
Okay.
And I know he's already walked through all that with them.
Okay, excellent. I had mentioned to Denise, while I have both of you here, the permits that we're approving for tonight are for the same day. So I just wanted to hear from the both of you that you feel like we have adequate coverage on both events.
Yeah, well, on the police end, we'll definitely, we have Lake Boon Patrol Officer,
Okay.
so he'll be dedicated to that.
Okay,
And then whoever we call in extra, whoever is in the rotation, will
Okay.
get this other detail.
okay,
We're gonna be calling in extra coverage as well.
okay,
And then the addition to that, I might have trouble staffing the fireboat in the lake and extra coverage at the station the same day.
okay,
I'll keep you posted on that, whether
Okay.
or not we get that.
okay,
Yes, so I do just want to comment
Yeah.
unrelated to this event, but for those of you who are not aware, Bolton is holding the Live Golf Tournament for Labor Day weekend,
Mm.
which has drawn up quite a bit of controversy throughout the country. They are expecting a very large crowd in Bolton. So both the chief and the captain were just talking that they may be asked to provide additional resources as well.
okay,
Obviously, Stow takes priority for our staff.
Yep.
But there will be a lot going on
okay,
in this area that weekend.
okay,
So just be aware.
okay. All right, that was the only question that I had, other than to say I'm super excited that this is a walkable event for me to be able to come down to, so thank you.
That's where we go.
I'm very excited. Do y'all have any questions?
No, I think it's a really exciting idea.
I think it's great. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Awesome. Ellen, did you have any comments? No? All right. Then on that, I will take a motion to approve this.
Would you like two separate motions?
I would like two separate motions because there are two separate things there. You were right.
Madam Chair, I move to approve a special event permit for the Assabet Craft Beer and Food Truck Festival to be held at First Parish Church on Saturday, September 3rd, 2022, from 12 noon until 4 p.m., pending receipt of all required food permits, tips, and crowd manager certifications for volunteers responsible for the event. In addition, recommendations of the traffic and safety plan as put forth by public safety officials must be followed.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Ms. Sturgis? Ms. Hageman?
Aye.
Ms. Fresha?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. That's unanimous. Motion two.
Furthermore, I move to approve a one-day liquor license for the Assabet Craft Beer and Food Truck Festival to serve beer from 3 breweries in a delineated area at First Parish Church on Saturday, September 3rd, 2022, from 12 noon until 4 p.m.
Second.
All in favor? Ms. Sturgis? Ms. Sturgis votes aye. Ms. Hageman?
Aye.
Ms. Fresha? And chair votes aye. And that's unanimous as well.
Thank you.
Excellent,
So
thank
Hector
you.
will get the permit signed and we'll let you know when you can pick them up.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. All right, and number two is going to be the permit for the annual Lake Boon Water Carnival. And do we have David Gray on? I see.
Yes, I'm on.
Hi, Dave, how are you?
Okay, thank you.
Great. Can you just give us a quick overview of the Lake Boon Water Carnival?
Okay, yeah, this is an event that's been going on for at least 100 years in various configurations. But the event that events that take place on the town land, the Pine Bluffs Town Beach, are on Saturday, September the 3rd. I don't want to get the dates confused. And basically we have canoe races. We have field events where people do, it's a largely for children, do a 3-legged race, a sack race, running races. And then they have entertainment, usually a magician or a clown or juggler, and a grilled lunch with just hot dogs, hamburgers, the usual wonderful fare. And then we have things on the beach like a balloon toss, swimming races. This is all contingent on the beach being accessible. See how the algae behaves itself in the next few weeks. But it's generally just a fun event for families, and it's been very successful. We get people from Stow and Hudson usually, and it's usually around 100 people. They come and go, so they're not all there at the same time. It is a larger weekend though. The Friday night before on the lake, people light up their waterfronts. We have a music boat that goes around the lake, and they keep moving, so nobody has to listen to a loud band for a long period of time. So that's on the Friday night, but it is all around in Stow and Hudson as well. And then Sunday we have our boat parade where people decorate the boats and go around the lake, and see who has the creativity and the sense of humor to really come up with something interesting. Sunday mornings, actually we have a historical boat tour. And then on Monday, we will have we've had recently sailboat regatta, just small boats racing if there's a good wind. And that's, it just makes for a really nice weekend, kind of closing out the summer season.
Amazing. That all sounds great. Did anybody have any questions on the board? No questions?
No, it's another great event.
It's another great event that's
Exactly,
happening.
yes.
Absolutely. Ellen, did you have anything to say? No? Okay. I mean, we're moving right along tonight.
Ready?
So I'm ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to grant a special event permit for the Lake Boon Carnival, to be held at Lake Boon on Saturday, September 3rd from 9:30 a.m. until 4:30 p.m., contingent upon receipt of the temporary food establishment permit from the Board of Health, and with the understanding that there will be no amplified music during Lake Boon quiet hours.
Second.
Any further discussion? No? All right, all in favor, Ms. Sturgis?
Aye.
Ms. Hageman? Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Fresha? Aye, and chair votes aye, so that's unanimous. Righty.
Thanks, David.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so next on our agenda, I had asked that we have a joint board discussion with the planning board and the EDIC and this board, just so that we can review the current charge of the EDIC, discuss any amendments. Basically, I want to hear from the EDIC as to A, how we can best support the charge of your committee, and B, sort of what you feel like has been working, what has not been working, just stuff like that. We haven't had, I think, mostly because of COVID, we haven't had a joint boards meeting with the EDIC. And I think now that we're sort of coming out of COVID, I felt like it was important that we all had a conversation. So that was that. I've invited Lori Clark is here from the planning board. And Lori, I got your email today. Are you able to share? Yep. Okay. Share it right so because I wasn't able to disseminate it to the board ahead of time, Lori had provided sort of, and Lori, I'm going to let you speak to what you had provided me best. So.
Sure. Do you want me to go now?
That would be awesome.
Okay. So the planning board had a discussion last week when we were asked for our input on the EDIC charge. And what I put together here, and it looks more formal than it really is. We really came out with 3 key points of input, and then I combined our discussion points into sort of samples of what we meant to give more context. So the first thing is we felt that it was a good idea to define a context that establishes the framework for which the groups work within, which to me acts as an overarching goal from a town's perspective standpoint. The second would be to have a specific charge, which in our estimation is really to create and implement an economic development plan to attract and retain businesses that fits into the town's overall plan, meaning where we're going with comprehensive plan, formerly known as master plan. And this implies that they're working with the boards and committees to create that common vision that is implied by the comprehensive plan, versus acting alone as a single body. And then lastly, it really just directly states that they should be working in conjunction with other boards and committees to influence those things under the purviews of the various boards and committees, not necessarily work in parallel on those same activities, really acknowledging that the other boards and committees, their charge is to balance more perspectives than just economic development. It should include economic development. So I guess I'm saying, to me, that plan that we're talking about would have things related to retaining and attracting businesses that maybe isn't under any other boards and committees purview. But for the things that are under the other boards and committees purview, the whole point should be collaboration that should really drive input to the town's overall comprehensive plan, creating one common vision. And so just to give you some context, I basically, if you want to scroll down just a little bit, we took some examples from online and then just created some statements so you would have a sense of what do we mean by that. So from that context standpoint, which is meant to be the overarching goal, you can see it's really saying the town is acknowledging that we want a thriving business community and we think it's vital to Stow and creating the kind of community in life of a town in Stow. At the same time, we need to acknowledge that residents want us to maintain the small town rural character, but still they do want locally accessible options for shopping, dining, etc. And so the whole point, the overarching framework is really we need to balance those desires, but certainly want to drive economic development in a way that does balance that. And of course, and you guys have been doing this, and I think the planning board has as well, but we should, as the town government, support business community to really continue to guide development of infrastructure where appropriate. So that is the example of the context, which really sets the framework of the overarching goal. And then the bottom is really just an example of the charge, which is really to create and implement an economic development plan to attract and retain businesses. But again, working towards giving input and influence to the comprehensive plan, but also working with other boards and committees to influence the things under their purview as well. So I don't know, I feel like I said a lot, but that's my take of the planning board's discussion.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. That's great. I'm glad that you were all able to have that discussion. I do want to hear. From Tom as to how far off from what the planning board's vision of the EDIC and how the EDIC is currently, and whether or not there is room to meet in the middle.
I think there's room to meet in the middle.
Okay.
I think that, the current charge, as I understand it, would, is basically to serve as a committee to help businesses within town resolve issues that they may be facing.
Okay.
In the time that I've been part of the committee, we have had opportunity to speak to several businesses. I don't feel that there is a driving concern from a lot of businesses in town. I think that the people that we have on the committee right now that have their own business in town or running businesses nearby, are crucial to keeping the committee going, and that their viewpoints are very valuable.
Okay.
Because they certainly look at things a little bit differently in terms of what's happening in the town. I think there's, the town's got some other challenges just in terms of looking at any kind of economic development at this point, and what that timeline even looks like.
Okay. Does anyone have any feedback they would like to offer?
Yeah, so I just have a question.
Sure.
Listening to both statements, they're different, but not opposed to one another.
Right.
So what would the process be in working on this statement and goal? But what would they work with the planning board? Would the EDIC come to us with a recommended language? What is the process?
Can you weigh in on that?
Well, I think this is it.
This is, yeah.
I think it's having this discussion. Laurie's representing what the planning board thought. You have the EDIC members here, and yourselves. So I think this would be where you discuss what you'd like to see. We could certainly clean it up into a formal charge and then can go back to the boards, but this is really where you'd gather that information and decide as a group what you'd like the focus of this committee to be going forward.
Well, so, should I continue?
Yes.
Sorry.
No, absolutely.
So is someone, I'm just thinking from hearing the statement that the planning board and that Laurie summarized in 5 minutes and not having it in front of me.
Yeah.
Makes it difficult and possibly for the EDIC members as well. I personally think that the charge that you described, which is narrow, should be broadened to include some of the information that the planning board recommended with respect to working collaboratively with town goals, such that the businesses can complete their plans and not get stuck in the middle, in a manner that works successfully with the neighborhood groups, and recognizing that there's some real infrastructure issues down there that makes it harder, but should definitely work with. That's one of our big aquifers. We have many more than one aquifer, so I like to work on these kinds of things with, I don't know how we just talk it. That's why I'm a little confused about this.
Hang on one sec. Ellen, you have your hand up.
Thanks. Yeah, Lori, thank you for writing. I mean, I agree with Ingeborg. It was a little hard to take it all in, but two things that jumped out at me is I have the original mission that's from, I think, the one that's on the website now. It strikes me that one makes the focus is more on them being the EDIC being a liaison from businesses to town boards. And what I heard when you were talking was more about writing, helping to write a plan, like the economic development plan, which I don't have a problem with. I just want to make sure I understood that right. And I'm still a little concerned around where the planning board will, how far it goes, and then where does it stop, and where does EDI, this sort of, I just don't want to create a friction of who's doing what, because it sounded to me, and again, we can rip through the paper a little more, or read through it more carefully, but it sounded like there might be some intersections that aren't as clear about what's planning board responsibility and what would the EDIC be doing.
Well, two comments to your statements. One is, I think when I say economic development plan to attract and retain businesses, there are many things that can be done that really maybe have nothing to do with the planning board or other boards in town. Any other that could be done. And I'll give you an example. Something that came up in a side conversation at the planning board was, I don't know if you've ever been to like a place like Kittery or where they have those almost cartoonish maps that have all the points of interest all over it. It's kind of a nice way to tell people where to go in town. There was an idea thrown out at one point that would be cool for Stow, especially during apple season, and that there could be events created during that time to almost make it a destination for people to come. Now, maybe that has a little to do with the planning board in terms of making sure that, those types where the events are allowed and things of that nature, from a zoning standpoint. But I think most of that could actually be part of an economic development plan that really has nothing to do with the planning board. I mean, the planning boards, and again, I kind of brought in to say working with boards and committees because I'm not sure the types of things they would come up with. I think from a planning board standpoint, if they're talking about zoning or they're talking about, things that we want, sort of the overarching themes that we want to work in goals that we want to work into the master plan, then to me, that's when they would work in a collaborative manner. For example, if I'm not sure, I'm making this up now, but say they thought it would be advantageous to come up with more of a one-page tips on how to get through the building permitting process, or so I'm making things up now, but I'm trying to give examples of things that honestly could be done on their own, but then things where they would be reaching out with the building inspector saying, we want to make it easy for businesses to understand X, Y, and Z and get his input, etc. That would be an example where they would collaborate with him. And clearly they wouldn't want to put something out that he didn't agree with of his own process. So that's what I mean by working with the bodies in town for what's under their purview versus things that they might do on their own, like the map idea. Again, I don't take those examples as.
Actually, but those were really helpful. I mean, that just gives me a sense of what we think. Those really, thank you. That totally clarifies it for me. Thanks.
Jen, you are next.
Thank you. Okay, so having served on this board for several years, when I think of economic development, I think of small business because that is what our town is a small town. I hear what you're saying, Lori, about having the EDIC work sort of separately. I find that impossible in a town such as this. It's impossible not to overlay certain topics because the downtown right now is sparse. And the reason for that is mostly water. It's impossible to separate the EDIC from the planning board, from the building department, from pretty much any committee that's here in town, the select board. Our goal is to support our business. Our business is dwindling. Having a centrally located place for apple pickers to go and gather, I can't think of one place that could be feasible because we don't have any water. I mean, it seems it just is so incredibly frustrating for me, and I can only speak for myself, and I'll let the others speak. I love this town. I want to have a place. I mean, Emma's Cafe left for many reasons, and those were reasons that we could have helped with. The water as you said, we have more than one aquifer. Why aren't we getting into this? I know we're having a feasibility study done.
Mhm.
This has been going on for so long. This has been going on for so long. I'm fearful that because there's some friction that now we are being judged and quite possibly being let go because of personalities. And I think that is short-sighted and completely unreasonable and unfair to our town. Not anybody on this board. We've committed our time and all of our efforts. I frankly don't want to be on the EDIC to create a cartoon map. And that seems just absolutely a waste of my time, and I can't speak for you. And I'm gonna stop because I'm getting emotional.
It's okay. It's okay. We served on the Lower Village Revitalization Subcommittee together. Water has been a discussion. I hear you on that. Okay.
So,
Thank
could
you. Yes, absolutely, Courtney.
Could I ask you a question about water and your efforts? So I don't know what the Economic Development Committee has done in terms of, but my thought is that, I'm sorry, this feels a little off topic. It's more water than, but it certainly is a central theme for business in Stow. I feel as though somehow the businesses that are or the property owners that are most affected by the lack of water development on the south side of 117, if they were able to get together and work with the town, if we could all have some productive conversations and constructive conversations, then perhaps we could advance with a feasibility study. Perhaps we could then come up with a way to plan to develop the water. I personally feel as though I would like to see some kind of joint effort between the town and the property owners to develop something for them, and then they can go run it and manage the cost amongst themselves and just deal with it. But we want that to work well as much as they do, or maybe more. And so it's our responsibility as the town to throw into that. But my question is, what can your committee do? And with all respect, I have no idea what you have done, but what can you do perhaps again to foster the business side of it, to speak with those property owners? Because I think it's property owners as much as business owners, and I guess some of those are both.
We've been asking for this conversation for years. And in this room that we're sitting in, being recorded and all of those things, I feel like we're under the gun here. I feel very uncomfortable right now. I don't want to have a conversation like this. I would rather sit with papers and looking at ideas and plans and ideas instead of defending what the economic development does and could do. And I know Kevin wants to speak, so I'll.
No, it's okay. I mean, I think that's exactly what the board would do. I would personally reach out to every landowner on that side of the street, and we'll get at the table, whether it's here or what has to be on film. I don't know exactly what has to happen logistically, but I have no problem reaching out and starting that conversation if it hasn't started already. And it should have started a long time ago. And can I jump back to something else? I wish that I had that letter from Lori
Yeah.
before tonight, first of
Yeah.
all.
I only got it
Or-
this morning,
No, no,
just so
yeah,
everyone's
this isn't
clear.
mine.
I wasn't holding on to it.
Yeah, I couldn't read it, but
We're going in blind
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
also.
Well, they are, to be clear, the rest of the select board was going in blind
And
as
that's
well.
not
I'm,
okay.
I'm the
That's
only
not
one who said
okay.
that.
So listen,
No, okay.
we are all in this, we can collaborate, rather, this is not an attack.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah. No,
this
not
is
at
an
all.
opportunity to collaborate. And that's, I'm so glad to see you all here so that we can all talk to each other.
And I just want to say one thing too. The purpose of this meeting was to reform, not throw you guys out of the room, but to figure out, having worked with two of you on a committee, I know that you bring so much to the table. I don't want to lose that. So I want to figure out how we can best use your abilities and the relationships that you have in order to have a successful EDIC that you all feel like you can hang your hat on it. That was my feeling for having this conversation. And that's why I wanted to bring it. Because what I had heard before was a lot of negativity. And I felt like we needed to be in this room to do it. And because of open meeting, we have to do it this
I
way.
get it.
So
I get
that's,
Is the EDIC in question, is question 2.
I think what I think.
Are we, being held? Is this gonna happen, or is we're staying on? Is that accurate?
I think if I may, I think after we have this meeting, we can ask you all again if you want to stay under that current charge. Under the charge, well, obviously, we're not coming up with an actual one. After we have this meeting, if it's still a board that you want to be a part of and be able to move forward, I will ask that of you. I would like to ask that of you. And then we can see how many people we have left to have a commission, but yes.
I was kidding. Good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think that the 4 of us sitting here and whoever else is on Zoom is a, hopefully, gives some insight to how we feel the importance of the board, okay? We wouldn't be wasting our Tuesday night if we didn't feel like it was something we wanted to continue, all right? Number 1. Number 2 is I'm sitting here listening to all of this, waiting for the feedback and waiting for the charge to come to make my decision if I'll stay on the EDS, right? Because if it comes to a point where I don't know, if I feel too stifled, we don't have a purpose, then at that point, I'll make my decision after that. I also was gonna say that Lori's email, if that was given to us 7 years ago, this would be all have been avoided, right? So if the select board and everyone else had got together prior to appointing this group, this board, then this would not happen.
I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Ellen has her hand.
Sure, Ellen. You're gonna have to unmute her, I think.
Yeah, thanks,
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
Well, I'll just say to the 4 of you there, I mean, I think it's really important that you stay on. You have committed hours and years to this, and we can't lose that. I would say, the previous discussion at this meeting was antagonistic unnecessarily. So I hope that you take this, having Megan putting it on the agenda tonight, having you here is an important next step. I think personally, I'd rather see that the charge is worked together with you guys. I mean, you know more than we do about what's been going on, what's worked or hasn't worked, getting your ideas on it. I think, starting to do, sort of what Ingeborg was talking about, the certain amount of, writing it down, chewing through it. I mean, it's not the most efficient way to do it within a large group, but maybe we get people from, Lori or someone from planning board, someone from the select board, someone from EDIC to start hashing it through and then bring it back as another joint boards discussion, rather than trying to write something, the however number we are of us. But I mean, I don't think the select board should be writing the charge. I think, you guys are the ones who have invested the time in this.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
I'd just like to say to the 4 of you that I have a great deal of respect for the time that you've put in and all of your efforts. And I see this as an opportunity to regroup and to have the conversation that didn't happen before, and to just go charging forward
Happily
and,
ever after.
and, yeah.
Yep.
So back to process.
It's back to process, okay,
I
so,
would like to just suggest, because I agree, talking in front of the TV about detailed issues, and there's no way we can finish this tonight. I would suggest that, because I'm also uncomfortable, just like, well, tell me the details about what the problems are. And the economic competition that you have over the town lines everywhere. I mean, these are not just environmental issues, they're huge. There's traffic, there's market basket. Anyway, can we, I don't know if this is appropriate, I'm just thinking out loud. Can a working group be established or something?
that is a great question for our town administrator.
Oh,
Can we establish a working group?
Yep.
Okay. Then
It would still be a public group, a public meeting though, if you're putting together a working group, it's a public
Right.
group.
I think there's a hand up in the.
Ozone?
No, it was Ellen. I mean, I don't see anybody else.
Right in front of me.
No, I know Tom is. I thought you were, I was like looking, I thought you were saying there was somebody there. Yes, I see you.
Is there opportunity for the select board, the planning board, the EDIC chairs to meet together to work on writing or rewriting that charge? And start there before we get into a working committee, if that is the intent, is to rewrite the charge for the committee.
So I will ask you, I'm not trying to skirt open meeting laws, but I'm trying to figure out how to do this the smartest. If we start with a jumping off point of what Lori has provided, and if all of them provide edits separately to the select board office, how is the best way to do this so that we don't have to have?
No, so the three chairs can meet, but you can't form a working group. If you form a working group, it is a public committee.
Okay,
So
but if
you
I have a
say
meeting
the
with
three
Tom and
chairs are gonna
Lori,
Sit down and have a conversation. You
Okay.
can certainly do that
All right.
without violating open meeting law.
fantastic. Then Lori, Tom, myself, let's figure out a time when we can get together and have a conversation, and then at least come up with a draft that we can then disseminate to the rest of the board's members, and just have, so everybody's on the same page. It feels like we're getting to be on. I want you all to understand that this is not an attack on you, that we probably desperately have needed to do this for a long time. But yes, Tom.
And the next question is
Yes,
assuming that we have that meeting,
Mhm.
I know that the EDIC has been requested to be on hiatus until we.
You have.
for-
So why don't
Some
we have, why don't
resolution.
we have that meeting?
Okay.
Get some resolution, give you a charge,
Yep.
and then you all can go right off into the sunset and do your thing. Yes, Denise, unless I just said something wrong.
No,
Oh.
I would actually say the opposite. I would
Okay.
actually say you allow them to meet so they as a group can put their thoughts
Oh,
together.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
Tom can represent what they feel when they
Okay.
meet with you.
Perfect. Do we need to revote that since we voted to?
Yeah.
If you took an actual vote, I would recommend you vote to allow the EDIC. to
I think it
continue
was part of
meeting,
a motion,
We-
so,
So that way they can form their discussion
Okay.
points that he can put together to meet with you.
okay.
I believe we also have a vacancy.
You have two
Two
vacancies.
vacancies.
So.
So anyone who's
there have-
listening.
Well, I've had someone that has applied
Okay.
several times
Have
with
they
no
sent-
response.
Do we have?
I only know of one and I responded, so you can certainly let me know offline who that is.
I will do
Okay.
that.
But I've only received one since I've been here, and I responded to that person.
Okay. All right, so let's take that vote, so I don't forget, to allow them to meet again.
Madam Chair, I move to allow the Economic Development and Industrial Commission to meet.
Thank you.
All right, all in favor, Ms. Sturgis, aye, Ms. Hageman,
Aye.
Ms. Fresha, chair votes aye. just make sure you post your meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so good. Any further discussion on this?
So
from
I
the
can
board?
send
Yes.
Lori's, what you had forwarded me from Lori, I can send that out to all of you.
Okay, and then we'll have a jumping off point, and why don't you, once you have set your meeting and all of that, contact me about when you and Lori and I can set up a meeting together. Okay, and then, can I request that if any of our board have anything, any input that they would like to give to me?
Now is the time,
Now
public
is-
meeting.
Okay.
But we haven't seen this document to read. I would really like to be able to
Okay.
read through Lori's draft. that
So
we're all-
again, I apologize.
all on the same
I didn't
page.
mean it to be a formal draft. I more just tried to write down so you could get a point what we meant in the first 3 bullets. So don't take it with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Yes, so we could put it on your next agenda to have, before you meet, you should have a conversation as a board about what you're gonna represent to the 3,
Yep.
with the 3 chairs.
All right, so what, we'll put that on the next agenda. We will have a discussion. And then we'll get out at least what Lori had sent out with the 3 bullet points so that the 4 of us can just review it prior to the next meeting.
Great.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you all. You can certainly stay for the Comcast contract if you'd like to, but if you'd like to leave, I will. Thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
So glad you all came.
Oh,
Yes, swag.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Deasy, the Stow TV director, is here to review and discuss the Comcast contract in advance of our public hearing on September 13th.
Let me first say, it's very interesting to be here 3D.
Right, seriously.
I'm used to seeing the screen. We're all around and everything. Anyway, it's been a long 1.5 plus. It's been a lot of back and forth. But I think between the board and our lawyer, and the Comcast rep, we've come up with a good contract that we can live with for the next 10 years easily. So you have the synopsis of the main points. I could just go over it. And if you have any questions. Our funding is by a fee that the cable companies give. It's federally mandated. It's negotiated what the percentage is, but we've been getting 4.75%. The highest you can get is 5%. And so we're sticking with that number. There was a FCC ruling that the cable companies could supposedly charge us for their costs. So there's a lot of fear about cutting into the.
That's if we had 5%,
I'm sorry?
if we were 5%.
Yes. If you go to 5%, it gives the cable companies an opportunity to charge for their costs. And so if we keep it at 4.75%, we have a 0.25% window. From what I understand, they haven't charged anybody anything yet, but it's been feared and out there. Anyway, so we're gonna keep it at the 4.75%. We've been fine with that. So the other thing is our capital support, we're given a certain amount of money for equipment. Technology changes quick. Our last contract, it was 83,000 and it was given every, I think, 3 years. This contract, it's 95,000 and it's $9,500 a year, which is actually good because they like to say they base that on the number of subscribers. And that's obviously gone down. Our lawyer talked to us and we appealed to them saying, well, you're still making a good amount of money because you raise your rates. So we were able to get a good capital loan, 95,000 over 10 years. We are finally going to get an HD channel within the first year, which is very exciting. It's been out for who knows how long, and we're still SD, unbelievable. Anyway, and it also involves, we do have to buy some new encoder decoders. We've been told all along that even our SD signal would have been better if we had these encoders. Comcast didn't do that, but now in this contract, we have to buy it, $15,000, that's okay. We'll get it. It's very important that we have that, because it does not look good right now with what we have. The other main point is we've had an iNet connecting this building, the library, the police station, the schools, not Hale. Oh, yes, actually, the schools and Papa Pacifica. It's coax, it's dated, it's been up there a long time. It was actually cut at Center School when the renovation was done. The other worry is that they can charge us for that if they want, the maintenance, because they're responsible for it, for the maintenance, but they would pass on the cost. We were advised by our lawyer, and it seems to make a lot of sense, that we let them buy out their responsibility for this, and that we instead install fiber with the money that we get for it, and that we own it. And Comcast has nothing to do with it. So the offer is $30,000. We have a quote from November for fiber connecting. That we wouldn't, for that amount of money, wouldn't go all the way to Pompo, but it would connect this building, the library, the police station, and the 2 schools. And we do as we want. So we get $30,000 for that.
Let me add to that.
I'm sorry,
Let me add to that.
and Bob would like to add to that.
I'm Bob Lorios, I'm the chairman of LACAC. The nice thing about this is not just for Stow TV, this is a town asset. So we can put anything we want on it, our own telephone system or anything. So there's enough bandwidth there that we can all use it together. So this is a real opportunity for the town, and that's one of the reasons why I pushed hard that we do it this way.
A question. Would it make sense to add some funding to that when it gets done, so that it also extends to Pompo, to the community center?
It can be done at any time. We can go ahead and install this, see if it
Oh, and
gets
then you can
used,
add
see what
on.
the interest is, and then add it.
If we need it, we can add it.
Great.
Yeah.
And if I may, Jonathan and I talked today that, quite frankly, the Verizon contract is coming up right away. So there will be some opportunity, not necessarily for the iNet, but if there's some capital investment, we could certainly look to utilize that to extend the fiber, or it's an appropriation the town could make to connect down to Pompo.
Excellent.
I'll get it later.
So where they do not, we'd love to get our programming put on the programming guide that all the cable companies have. I don't think they've done that for anybody, but lawyer Bill has put in a letter saying that they will be required to meet with us to at least discuss it after 6 years. So at least it's a conversation. So if people want to record our programming, using DVR, they'd also be able to easily see what's coming up. So there's a discussion. They agreed to a discussion. It's a start. I think he's also put in a clause where if they get out of the cable business and they're only doing internet, we will still be funded. Local TV will still be funded in one way or another. Is that right? I think.
Well, basically what the contract it says is that they cannot charge us to use it. We can use use cable TV. If they aren't doing cable TV, then we can do what we're doing. And in other towns, if they get out of the business, you get nothing. So in this case, we still get paid for it. So we'll be able to use it for our own broadcasting.
So the gist is, my predecessor, Ann, was very good with keeping the budget within what we were getting, actually well below that. And we have a good amount of savings. If cable was to suddenly go away, we could still continue for for a number of years. So we have a nice cushion. But this contract, I believe we'll be able to continue fine. And, maybe even make more of a cushion, I don't know. But it's good. It's a good contract and we'll be able to continue. No question. A lot of our neighboring towns, they're worried about getting contributions and appealing to businesses and having to go fundraising. We're not in that position.
Yay, you guys for getting that contract.
Yes.
We're frugal.
Not so
Right,
yet,
it's-
but,
Yes,
so I'm a bit of a Luddite, and so I want to just ask some general questions. iNet is,
It's a connection, it's a video AV kind of
so it's just-
connection.
It's an internal net that's just within the town.
thank you, perfect, okay, so cable versus fiber. You're saying that you're gonna have the money to connect fiber and potentially down to Popo, right? How does that relate to the cable that you're discussing?
I'm gonna let Bob do
There are two ways of transmitting information. One is over wire and one is over light. And fiber is light. And the nice thing about it is you're limited to what you can put through a piece of wire. But those limitations are much, much less on fiber. So you can put a lot of data down a piece of fiber. And as the technology at the end pieces gets better and better, it gets more and more. So the fiber is basically an asset for us. And that's why I say we could put anything we want on it once we have it.
So just, I know you're jumping, I just have a quick question.
I was
So-
gonna comment on the reason why, but that's fine.
Well, just, so then why are we worried about cable if we're gonna do fiber?
So it's
Okay.
it's not to deliver the cable to the community. It is for us to be able to broadcast from Pompo. It's
Right.
clear a signal back here to
The
the head end
fiber
room,
is.
the fiber.
So then why are we worried about the cable?
That's gonna go away.
The cable's gonna go away.
It's a rutted road
Thank you.
versus a paved road.
No, I get it, right? I get, you have perfect description, but you were indicating there was concern about if they stop being a cable company,
Well,
that,
that's different.
that's different.
that's different.
That's a different, if they got out of the business, but they were still doing business within the town,
Then
they weren't doing
Okay,
cable television.
then that's it. I think the only other comment that I had, you mentioned Verizon, but we're talking Comcast.
Verizon comes up next year.
Two separate contracts,
What does Verizon do for us?
same thing.
Yeah,
Why?
So they're a cable
it's
provider.
two companies in town.
In order for any company to provide cable in a community, they have to negotiate a contract with the licensing authority, which is the select
Oh.
board.
So,
So if we had, RCA came to town, they'd have to come here and negotiate a contract.
okay,
I will say the benefit in Stow is that you have two providers, where a number of communities only have one, and there is no choice for the residents.
exactly.
It's either like satellite or the local cable provider.
Okay, so Stow TV, you use Comcast?
We use both.
run on both.
You use both.
We broadcast out on both.
That's fine. I'm not gonna go any deeper. 'cause
It's too hard.
Now,
Let me add something else. The confusion is that the word cable has been bastardized through the years.
Okay,
It was a way to provide television to homes remotely
in
from an
the olden
antenna,
days.
from the olden days. So we use the word cable for that, and that's when the cable business means broadcasting television. When they decide they don't want to do that anymore, then we still get paid. That's
Thank you.
what the contract says.
Good
And that's good
contract.
for us.
That's good for you. Thank you. I'm done.
Is there anything else?
no, I mean, I would just say, so there are different components. So the majority of this contract pertains to cable TV that is provided to our residents from Comcast. What channels, it talks, or how many channels, what the turnaround time is in service calls. Then they provide a capital expenditure for local government access channels and public access channels to be able to maintain their public and government channels, to be able to broadcast meetings and things like that. The third piece is what used to be the iNet, which was big in the 80s and 90s. And that was a way that cable providers connected all municipal buildings so that you could have, because fiber didn't exist back then, you could have buildings connect, you could share your internet when it first came out, dial-up service. when they give us the money for the fiber, when they give us the money for the fiber, they are no longer, they will have nothing to do with that system. They are just buying that back from us.
Okay.
So that will be a standalone, quite frankly, whatever we want to do with that. If we use it to broadcast, use it to run meetings, and if we don't, it's on us. But the bulk of the contract is just what television services are provided to our residents on behalf of Comcast.
Well, I have to commend you guys as volunteers for tackling this.
Took a lot of time.
It did.
I will second that.
Bob, were you both for the last one too?
Yes, Lisa and I were.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully not the next one.
No, the next one's coming up.
No, I mean the next 10-year round.
Who knows what will happen?
So if I could just comment.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
again, so this discussion tonight was in anticipation of our next meeting having the public hearing. Obviously, there will be a meeting in between.
Mhm.
I will have Joyce post the synopsis that Jonathan did, even though it's in your packet. I'll have her post that on the website along with the contract, which is available on the select board page. So if people want to read the cable contract in anticipation of the public hearing, they're welcome to do that. But the public hearing will then be on September 13th, where you will have to hear from the public if they have concerns or comments.
Okay.
Before you formally vote to approve the contract.
And to help you think about it, I'd like to offer Stow TV hats. Take your pick,
That yellow is pretty.
just to keep it focusing on.
It's
a great hat.
Thank you, Jonathan.
I've worn mine out.
I love it.
What's your color?
Thank you. All right, so
Nice.
I will grab one at the end.
Yes. I will.
Me too.
Thank you for the great.
All right, well, thank you all.
Yeah, definitely. thank
Appreciate
you.
all of that.
It's like,
You can stay for the rest of the meeting. You can go home.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
if you're
Thank
leaving
you.
now, why don't we just do it so he can leave?
I can get.
I'm upstairs.
He has to,
I'm here
the
till
rest of the
you're here.
meeting.
He's a floor away.
I have to stay.
He's a floor away tomorrow. And we'll, and
Those are valuable.
Ellen will have to choose which color and we'll. get it to
Yes.
you. Thank you.
I don't know if she can see the table in the image.
No,
We'll put it on our heads.
Oh.
He left some baseball hats.
I got the idea there was hats, but I can't see them, but that's okay. You guys pick which ones you want and I'll take leftovers. It's the cost of not being there. Very nice. All right, so next on our agenda are the meeting minutes.
Hey, I thought they were pretty good.
They were, thank you, Joyce.
Two. I move we accept the meeting minutes of the July 26, 22 meeting as drafted.
Second.
Any further discussion? No, all right, all in favor? Ms. Sturgis? Aye. Ms. Hageman?
Aye.
Ms. Fresha? And the chair votes aye. That is unanimous. All righty, we have some correspondence. Does anyone have any comments on correspondence?
I was gonna ask
The
you.
100 pages, was it Malcolm's?
I missed correspondence, so.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that there were a couple of residents who wrote to us about water. And I also heard from somebody directly who called me up. Just concerns about water conservation and one resident sent us, let us know that there's pending legislation in the Ways and Means Committee. Senator Eldridge has put forward something which I think will strengthen the town's position to enforce water restrictions as necessary if we wanted to say to the residents, don't water your lawns. So I just thought that was interesting, that there would be that. I would prefer that people just do the right thing, but I think it's also useful to know that that we could say we would like you to in a more formal way.
Okay.
And then
Sorry.
somebody else said that they thought it would be useful for us to have a current hydrogeological survey to understand the water resources in Stow. Because of the concern of wells going dry. And I thought those things were useful. I don't know whether we need an agenda item in the future.
Well, yes, I was going to suggest that we do have an agenda item in the future because the town of Stow has a whole lot of different superficial geology, and we have a number of different types of wells. We have wells in stratified drift, we have wells in till, and they all have different cones of influence. All our water also gets recharged into the ground via our septic systems, and when you water lawns, in our case, it goes back into our, and granted, depending on the type of geology you have, the ability of that water to get down into the ground varies. It could take 10 years, it could take 50 years, it could take 2 years, right? Depending on what kind of a well you have and what kind of geology you have. With respect to and I think this is what we should talk about a little bit, and maybe have the Board of Health here. One of the other issues, the last time we had a big drought, I was on the Board of Selectmen, and we had the Board of Health came and met with us and talked about some of their contingency planning, and it was enlightening. It was really amazing, and I was very impressed with the Board of Health. It may make sense to do that again.
Okay.
I think with respect to public information about the type of geology, it's on Mass GIS, and I also have a hard copy of the superficial geology of the town of Stow. And I think people need, I've gotten a lot of calls. I apologize, I didn't read the things, but I have gotten calls, and I think people don't understand the geology and the subtleties of the geology in this town and how it contributes. So we also have some public wells. We have the well for this location, and I don't know them all. And so the cones of influence and where they are and how deep they are. And we also have wells in town that are affected by PFAS. And so there's a lot of layers about our drinking water that gets complicated when we have a drought. So I think it would be helpful if there was a bit of an educational component so that people understood what kind of well they have, and if it's shallow, and what's the definition of shallow based on the type of geology they have. So there's a whole lot of information out there, and we have to be careful that agricultural use is a huge use. So when you tell people to not water their pollinator garden, is that really beneficial when you also want to encourage a beneficial ecosystem with the pollinators and the wildlife? So, and you do want to support agriculture, and then you have, you know, the golf courses and you have industries. So where really is the bang for the buck with respect to our understanding of water consumption in this town? So it's not a simple thing. It's and long term, this is climate change. And so this town, with respect to the comment about the hydrogeological study, using the superficial geology maps that we have, we may want to, at some point, with public input, get funding to understand a new well. What's a new well going to be down in the lower village, right? And what's the drawdown there? And so we may need to appropriate funding to understand for our future how we're going to maintain our agricultural uses, maintain our recreational uses, and maintain private residential uses. It's an amazing topic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You wanted to weigh in?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah.
comment that, so my understanding is the Board of Health is meeting on Thursday of this week, and one of their topics is in lieu of any state action on mandating water bans, if you will, there is a potential for the town to adopt a bylaw. So it would have to go through town meeting that would allow some type of enforcement in this sort of drought situation. They are supposed to be discussing that, and then they would come forward here to have that discussion with you all. But we can certainly ask them to come in. I know the Board of Health office has been receiving a number of calls. There are, and I will say, the town beach well has run out of water. We were just told that the capacity here, we have outgrown the capacity of the well for the town system here. Some residents have called that they are having water issues. So the Board of Health has been receiving a lot of phone calls about their wells and telling folks the specific depth of their well. But, to Ingeborg's point, what do you do with that? I do think that we should be educating people on, I mean, people would called me and said, well, how do I know if I have shallow well?
Exactly.
Well, I don't know.
Exactly.
The Board of Health has those records, but I would
Yes, some
assume
of
you would know as a resident how deep your well is, but, but then what does that mean? And someone actually said to me last week, well, I don't care, I have a deep well. I said, but it does impact that we do have residents that are at serious risk. So it's just a conscious effort to, just pay attention to your water usage. My understanding is any ban, agricultural is exempt, obviously, because they are in the food production mostly. It's the watering the lawns, the washing the cars. That's the type of things we're just asking folks to refrain from. Because we just don't know when this will end, right?
One of the interesting questions is that our water comes from the recharge of the surface, right? Precipitation, lack thereof, watering lawns and stuff. So it's interesting. I sort of wonder, we're in a drought now, but 2 years ago we had excess rain. So that water is seeping down and now we're having less seeping. So the impact to the deeper wells from this infiltration is going to take a while. So, it's like, depending on your geology, it would really, given that our town is likely going to stay on private wells, it does make some sense to have a professional understanding of what's happening. And one of the emails that I know, should we keep talking or is this an agenda item?
No, I think it's fine. I think we should put it on an agenda for sure, because what I
We can
would,
talk more on that time.
and
We can go home.
nope. I think I want to see the documents that you're referring to. I would love to have some kind of a public education thing, because I think that that's part of our responsibility too, right? Is making sure that people understand that because of the topography, because of the geology of what's happening in our particular rural town, that we all just should be aware of it. So I think that would be fascinating.
And I'm sure the Board of Health is documenting the locations of where the wells are having trouble.
I would assume so.
Yeah, so because that is for future planning, we need to know that.
Ellen, did you have a comment? Sorry, I thought I had seen your hand raised. And Denise, you had one more comment on correspondence if nobody else is.
Yes,
Yeah.
included in your packet was the feedback for the community engagement plan. Does the board wish to make that an agenda item and have a discussion on your comments with regards to the plan? Obviously, departments will be weighing in on it. They've had a couple of community groups working on it. But it has gone out to all departments and the board if you'd like to weigh in. I mean, you can let me know, but that is something that if the board would like to talk about, we should get on an agenda.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and I think I'm thrilled to see that this kind of planning is finally happening.
Yeah.
So since it needed to be looked at all over again. Okay, so we can just send you notes if we have them.
No.
Just put it on
No,
the agenda.
Put it on the agenda. No, sorry, that's what I meant.
Yes. Yep, so if you'd
okay.
like it on the agenda, we can schedule that.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on correspondence? I had a quick question about the hemp email.
Yes.
Can you? I know what we're allowed to do, having been on planning board during that discussion. I know there's no growing industrially of marijuana allowed in this town, but hemp is now, or not now, because it looks like it was 5 years ago.
I can't speak to much of it other than it is fully regulated by the state.
Okay.
We had no say in it. Quite frankly, the departments here were not even aware that this license was being issued.
Okay.
But But yes, we have no say. It's more informational to let you know that the state did issue a license
Okay.
and.
So if anybody comes to us and says, why is my neighbor growing this?
Yes,
Then we can say they legally can grow this.
yes.
They're gonna make rope.
All the things.
For
Necklaces. All right, any other questions on correspondence or comments? Hearing none, I will take another motion.
Madam Chair, I move we adjourn.
Second. All in favor, Ms. Sturgis,
Aye.
Ms. Hegeman, Ms. Fresha,
Aye.
and Chair votes aye. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
We're
Good night.